FYF Sports, man, it's Lamont. We back with another podcast video today. And we got some news out of the White House, man. Very, very interesting take from one of the White House senior advisors, Jared Kushner. Before we get into that, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Again, the only way you stay informed with everything that we got going on here at FYF Sports is you hit that notification bell along with the subscribe button. Again, a lot of you guys come back and you asking about this video, asking about this topic. Sometimes we've already dropped this video. Again, the only way you stay up to date with some of the news that we have is if you hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. All right. Today, just got some breaking news out of the White House. Obviously, with the killing of Jacob Blake out of Kenosha, Wisconsin, a lot of people have turned to lawmakers. They have turned to politicians, and they're really saying, something has to be done. This police brutality in the United States, it's starting to become something that's getting out of hand. And a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about the black community, the white community, and the Mexican community, we all want to see something change. We've seen forms of police brutality affect whites, even here in Arizona. There was a white guy who was shot in a hotel, hands up on the ground, on his knees, shot dead. In Los Angeles, California, we saw a cop brutally beat a Mexican guy up for no particular reason at all, other than he was just having a bad day. The guy has his hands up, his hands are on the wall, no resistance, the cop beats him up. In this particular situation right here, we see Jacob Blake walking away from the police. Whenever somebody's walking away from you, that's considered a form of de-escalation. Regardless of why or what was going on, you don't want to continue to escalate the situation. Cops in Kenosha, Wisconsin escalated the situation by following him to his car, and not just following him to his car, shooting him in the back 7 times. And again, situations with Tamir Rice and George Floyd, Eric Gardner, they go on and on and on and on. A lot of people will say, well, what about black on black crime? Well, again, that's a different topic. That's a different story for another day. When we're talking about police officers, when we're talking about paid representatives who are supposed to protect our communities, we need to make sure that they're getting trained properly and they can go out here into our communities with confidence that they can do their jobs without killing unarmed Americans. So when this topic was brought up to the Trump senior advisor, Jared Kushner. Now, Jared Kushner is also the son-in-law of Donald Trump. And I wanted to play this video really quickly here so you guys can hear exactly how he felt about the Milwaukee Bucks boycotting the game against the Orlando Magic. And this guy has a very, very interesting take that's not necessarily surprising, but it shows you the mindset with regards to how politicians feel about the black community. And not just about the black community, but how serious they're actually taking these social issues, these social injustices that are happening to Americans across the United States. We're going to go ahead and get to this video. After we play the video, we're just going to go ahead and break it down from there. And again, I would really love to hear back from you guys with regards to what you think about this particular topic. What do you think about what Jared Kushner said? Do you think is representative of Donald Trump and his feelings toward these issues? And how will it affect your vote going into the elections? But we're going to go ahead and play this video.
Jared, the other thing that happened overnight is that the NBA has now postponed games in large part as a result of a protest or boycott by the players. This relates to the sort of larger Black Lives Matter issue. Does the White House support the players and the owners in this case?
Look, I think that the NBA players are very fortunate that they have the financial position where they're able to take a night off from work without having to have the consequences to themselves financially. So they have that luxury, which is great. Look, I think with the NBA, there's a lot of activism, and I think that they've put a lot of slogans out. But I think that what we need to do is turn that from slogans and signals to actual action that's going to solve the problem. And if you look at President Trump's record, people are talking about social injustice. He passed historic criminal justice reform. They talked about how there's wealth inequality. He passed opportunity zones to bring more access to capital in the black and minority community. We talk about education. He's fighting for school choice so that people in the inner cities and failing schools can go to better schools. And then he's also granted long-term funding to the historically black colleges and universities. So what I would say is that, look, people don't like seeing what's happening in a lot of these cities. President Trump has been very strong to say we don't want violence in these cities, but we just have to take this conversation from an emotional one to a constructive one and say, what are the policies that we can agree on? We all agree on where we want things to go. President Trump has a policy platform, but it would be great if we can all come together on a policy platform that will lead forward and actually start executing. And you'll hear President Trump talk about that tonight and on the campaign, which is that a lot of people in Washington have failed these inner cities for a long time. And quite frankly, as a former Democrat, Andrew, we know each other from New York. I was a Democrat too, but coming to Washington, and now that I'm a Trump Republican, I do feel like the Democrats have run these cities for a long time, and you have nothing but failure and broken promises. President Trump has a platform that actually will make a difference. And I think that you're not going to get a different result by following the same people who have failed and doing the same policies that haven't worked. It's time for something new. We want to see the country move forward. And President Trump is the leader who's proven that he can get these things done and has a vision to actually bring change.
There you have it right there. That's Jared Kushner, White House senior advisor, son-in-law to the President of the United States, Donald Trump. There's his take right there on some of these issues. And it's really hard because I know this is a sensitive subject for a lot of people. I don't like the fact that he tried to shade the NBA players in a sense. I think as he started off what he was talking about, he tried to shade the NBA players for taking this stance, basically saying that they're lucky that they can take a night off without having to face a lot of financial repercussions. But Mr. Kushner, you have to understand that not every player on these NBA teams are making millions of dollars. I mean, you got guys on some of these NBA teams who are still on two-way contracts, making $60,000, $70,000 a year. And they're banking on a lot of these playoff bonuses to maybe live and survive for the rest of the year. Because as we all know, $60,000, $70,000 is not going to get you through the year. So there's some players on these teams that aren't making millions. And I think that's what we forget when we look at these NBA players, when we look at these teams, we automatically assume everybody on the rosters is rich. Everybody on the roster is driving Lamborghinis and living this lavish lifestyle. No, that's not the case. You know, some of these guys are only on the NBA for a couple years and then they're out. You know, some of these guys, when they do get to the NBA, they're on minimum contracts. They're on two-way contracts out of the G League. You know, some of these guys just they don't have it like that. So for you to really disrespect a lot of players in the NBA who don't have this lavish lifestyle that you think all NBA players have, I think that's really disrespectful and disingenuous. So to have that assumption right there, you're starting off, you're putting yourself. So basically what happens when you make that statement, when Jared Kushner makes that statement, anything else that he says to follow it up, people are now going to go deaf to it. Because the only thing they've heard is that you disrespected the players, their stance, what they're boycotting for, and all because you think that they're only doing it because they're in a financial situation that they are. When, again, that's not the case for all NBA players. The second thing, he started, you know, this is another thing that I don't like about politics. And this is from Democrats and Republicans. The one thing I hate it when people take these opportunities to bolster up any particular candidate to try to throw things out there as, you know, yes, this situation did happen. Yes, it was negative, but look, our candidate is doing things already. He's doing X, Y, and Z. Okay, so the fact that President Trump, he did do the bipartisan criminal justice reform bill, which again, that only affects federal prisoners. One. So again, there are a lot of African Americans in state prisons where that criminal reform bill did not help them at all. Two, I don't like the fact that you divert. He essentially diverted from the fact that Trump has done nothing with regards to affecting police brutality in this country. He hasn't drafted a policy. He hasn't drafted any fruitful bills. He hasn't made any executive orders that are going to make any immediate change. And I know that making an immediate change across the board for some of these issues is going to be hard, but that there are things that he can do with regards to making these police officers accountable. If you're involved in any of these incidents, you're immediately stripped of your badge and gun or any pay. You're not eligible to receive any assistance from police unions with regards to your legal fund. There are things that he can do so that before cops make some of these decisions, they have a lot going on. They know that there's a lot to risk by pulling their gun out. They know that they truly have to be in a situation where their life's in jeopardy before they pull their gun out and decide to shoot somebody. There should be laws in place that do not allow for or tolerate the shooting of anyone in their back. Because again, whenever someone has their back to you, they're definitely not a threat to you. There should be more penalties in place for officers who are shown on camera as escalating the situation and not de-escalating the situation, as we see in the Jacob Blake case, as we saw in the George Floyd case, as we saw in a number of cases, Tamir Rice. These are all examples of cops who use zero de-escalation tactics. Even when we look at the off-duty cop Amber Geiger, zero de-escalation tactics. It's shoot first, talk about it, and discuss it, and de-escalate later. And you gotta understand, once you shoot somebody 7 times, it's a little too late to de-escalate. I seen a shooting in Chicago where the cops shot a guy 20 times, and after they were done shooting, they yell out commands for him to put his hands behind his back. Sometimes I think some of the stuff that cops do is extremely comical. I think it's done with willful intent. And this is not to even touch on some of the problems in Chicago. There are a lot of police killings in Chicago where a cop doesn't even have to pull a gun. And these are the things that go unspoken. How many times have black victims died because when cops were called to the scene, they took 30 and 40 minutes to get there? How many times have black victims died because ambulances and cops took over an hour to arrive on the scene and people bleed out on the sidewalk? Regardless of what happened, whenever there's a victim and whenever there's a shooting, cops need to be the first responders. That's why they're called first responders. But one of the unspoken things that happens in some of these neighborhoods that I don't know why nobody talks about this is the willful intent sometimes when our so-called first responders, whether it's firemen, whether it's the ambulance, whether it's cops, take their time into going into certain neighborhoods, knowing the seriousness of the situation, knowing that it's been reported that someone's shot and dying on the sidewalk. But yet they take 30, 40, sometimes up to an hour to get on the scene, and the victim is now bled out on the sidewalk. That's another issue. I can also consider that a form of police brutality as well. There's so many things, there's so many elements to this that just kind of go undiscussed. And I just think that we allow our attention to go so many different places. We allow our attention spans to get, we're so focused on blaming the cops that there are a number of other issues that we have to fix as well that are also all considered police brutality. I also consider what he said as a bit of shade towards Kyrie Irving. When he said that NBA is just full of slogans and, T-shirts. I was even critical of the NBA for, when they talked about putting slogans on the court, names on T-shirts. Again, that's all good and dandy. I still have yet to see anything tangible out of the NBA in regards to affecting change. Now, I have heard of plans. I have heard of NBA owners committing dollars to certain social and economic advancements in the African American community. That's fine. That's great. Does that solve police brutality in America? See, there are a lot of things that the NBA can say that they're going to do. There are a lot of things that a lot of us, we would love to hear our politicians say. But at the end of the day, I need to hear some very, very tangible and real solutions to how we're going to fix police brutality. Are we going to retrain officers? Are we going to make a willful effort to weed out racism from some of these police departments? Are we going to hold officers accountable when they falsify police reports? Are we going to make it a more serious crime? These are the things that I want to see politicians actually step up and do, because these are the things that are creating the atmosphere for police brutality to be tolerated. When you know that there's no penalty for doing these things, that's when these things continue to happen. Jared Kushner, I understand that it's your job to promote and uplift the presidential election campaign. But at the end of the day, mentioning things like the criminal justice reform bill, mentioning things like some of the social and economic bills that you've implemented to help historically black colleges, and that does nothing for police brutality. Not today. There are tangible and real things that the U.S. government, federal and statewide, can begin to implement and do to start to weed out multiple forms of police brutality. And I really hope that our state, local and federal officials can understand that. And then we as a people, we also need to understand that as well, because I think we also begin to settle. We hear things from our politicians. We hear things from Democrats. We hear things from Republicans that sound good. But are we holding them accountable when these things do not pan out or work as effectively as initially claimed? You guys, I want you guys to think about that. Let me know what you think about what Jared Kushner said. What do you think about the situation in general? How do you feel about the NBA players voting to go back and finish the playoffs? Let me know what you think about all of these situations in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. But again, FYF Sports, man, another great video. Again, if you guys want to be a part of the show, we are looking for another co-host to FYF Sports. If you want to be a permanent co-host on FYF Sports, if you feel like you have what it takes, all right, to bring it on a daily and weekly basis, because we're grinding to 100K. If you feel like you can do that, hit us up. Business at FYFsports.com. We're at 11.5K subscribers now. We're grinding. We're growing. Do not miss the wave while it's there. Again, we're looking for a hard-working person who can come in, grind out episodes, and then also bring a unique perspective and train of thought to FYF Sports on all sports entertainment topics. But it's FYF Sports, man, another great video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Hit that notification bell. It's been another great episode, and we're out.